Welcome everyone. My name is Titi Tijana. I am the president of the African Communities of Manitoba. And I'm honored and loved to have Malaika, a young writer in our community, read a little bit about from her book, and then I'll have some questions for her, and then I'll open it up for the audience. So, Malaika.
Okay, thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor and a privilege to have been invited to speak with you all and to hear from my fellow writers. So I just have a few words prepared, and I wanted to talk a bit about my books concerning the theme today of combating racism. So there's a lot of important work to do to combat racism, and my role in that as a creator, I feel, is to influence change through my work by creating positive representation for our youth. So in doing this, I hope to challenge the stereotypes and storylines often presented in children's media, and to make the industry more inclusive as a whole, because racism is systemic and covert. I am also an illustrator, so I published my first book, Amina's Afro, in November of 2022, and my second book, Jamilah's Family, in December of 2023. Although I feel like I did a great job and the books turned out beautifully, we can actually see the depth of systemic racism before I could even begin. As an illustrator, I use a lot of different apps, programs, software, and I also have to buy additional textures, brushes, and things like that to create my art. So out of all of the apps and programs that I pay for, not one of them includes or sells any sort of curly hair brushes. There are no braids or anything like that, so all of the defaults, as well as any additional for purchase, are for straight hair. We have wavy hair, flowy hair, but no curly, coily, or textured hair. Since Amina's Afro is about her hairstyles, I had to first create my own digital brushes and tools before I could create the book. So by creating these tools, I gave myself the tools to start creating that representation. I use my work to create the stories that I never had growing up. And when I was younger, there were not a lot of diversity with the characters and stories that we had. And I had to try really hard and get creative to relate to the characters that were available. So for example, a lot of people found the remake of The Little Mermaid with Halle Bailey as Ariel to be controversial, but to me, it made perfect sense. Ariel and The Little Mermaid was my favorite Disney princess as a child. To me, it was not just a story about a mermaid who wanted to live with people. It was about an immigrant trying to assimilate into a new culture and navigate the challenges of being in an interracial relationship, just like my parents and grandparents had to do. The Little Mermaid 2 with Ariel's daughter was not just about a human who was fascinated by the sea. It was about a mixed girl trying to reconnect with a lost part of her identity and culture that she didn't get to grow up with, much like myself being born in Canada, trying to connect with my diverse background. Studies have shown that children who grow up lacking representation tend to have a lot of issues with confidence, identity, and belonging. This is especially true for multiracial, immigrant, and multicultural kids who are often forced by society to pick one or the other. This is why our cultural communities are so important, and I'm grateful to have grown up with the support of my communities. This is also why the work that we're all doing here to educate and create more diversity is essential and long overdue. With Jamilah's Family, I want to make sure that mixed kids of today know that their experiences are valid and that their families are normal too, and to be able to show people who come from a more nuclear family structure that there are families who look different than theirs. So as a writer, I can see how much progress we've made in terms of getting diversity, but there is still a lack of positive representation. A lot of the characters for people of color are not written, designed, or portrayed by them, which can lead to stereotypes, unconscious biases, and those characters are not representative of our lived experience. Even the most popular children's books in recent years marketed towards Black children by Black authors still further narratives of struggle, self-doubt, and other harmful storylines. So for example, the book Sulwe by Lupita Nyong'o is a story about a dark-skinned girl who learns to love the skin she's in. However, the book starts off with the main character being bullied, called a darkie and a blackie, trying to take off her skin and literally praying to God that she wake up lighter like her sister. Although I support the message of loving yourself, it can be incredibly traumatic to have to read those words and see those pictures as a child. With my writing, I hope to teach children to be confident, empowered, and love themselves without first making them feel insecure, ugly, and undeserving. These storylines of trauma and suffering are not present in mainstream media, and other writers don't often create stories like this. So I can already see that I am creating representation and having a positive impact. I just got a comment on TikTok from a woman that says, "My daughter's name is Jamilah, I'm Black, her dad is Asian, and we also live with a big family. Thank you so much for this book." I have little girls named Amina bringing the book in for show and tell, and there have been at least 3 book reports on Amina's Afro that I'm aware of.
Good.
So the hard part is getting others outside our community to be more receptive to the idea that this book is for them as well, because of the inherent racism in our society. I get a lot of messages saying things like, "My niece has an Afro," or "My daughter's best friend is Black, she would love this book." And as much as I appreciate that, I do have to challenge the idea of why their own daughter wouldn't love a book about embracing yourself and building confidence. People of all backgrounds think it's amazing that I'm creating these books, but not all of them are willing to buy it for their kids. So Amina's Afro is not inherently about her being Black, but most people are not willing to look past that. Although my books are written, illustrated, and published, the work is not over.
No. Well, thank you for that intro. Would you be reading a little bit from the book?
Yeah, I left it at my seat.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so today I'll be reading from Amina's Afro. Do we have enough time for the whole thing?
Not the whole thing, but
Okay.
just right.
Okay.
Just a portion. Do you have 2 in there? Because I could show it.
Oh, no, it's just the one.
Just the one. Okay.
So Amina's dad peeks his head into her room. Are you awake?
that?
Good morning, my love. Don't forget, today is Saturday. Amina's eyes pop open and she jumps out of bed to start her day. Saturday was wash day, but only after the house was clean. Every Saturday, Amina and her family spend the morning cleaning the house from top to bottom. They have a specially big breakfast, and then it's wash day. They all wash, condition, and detangle their hair. Then they get to pick a style for the week.
That's what I thought, because I read it.
When the time came, Amina's mom asked, "What style do you want today, my dear?" "I don't know, Mama, you pick today. But guess what? I saw a family of rabbits cheering for me on the soccer field." I know just the style. Tell me more about your soccer game." Amina's mom made her hair into a bunny tail on the top of her head with cornrows going up. She put carrot pins on the cornrows and flowers in the tail. On Monday at school, Amina's friends loved her hairstyle. Rebecca stared at her and said, "Wow, I want my hair to look just like yours." Emily, Sarah, and Stephanie all nodded and wanted the style too. "I love my braids," Amina replied. "It's super easy. Just make your hair into a bunny tail." For the rest of the week, Amina's friends all had animal tails, but they were certainly not bunny tails. There were ponytails and pigtails and fishtails, and Stephanie even had a beaver tail.
Yeah, it's very short.
The next wash day, Amina's dad asked, "What style do you want today, my dear?" "I don't know, Daddy. You pick today. Yesterday, we read a story about a princess. She had the most beautiful tiara." I know just the style. Amina's dad made her hair into a giant flat twist that sat like a tiara on her head, with twisties on the side and crown clips all around. Monday at school, Rebecca stared at her and said, "Wow, I want my hair to look just like yours." Emily, Sarah, and Stephanie all nodded and wanted the style too. I love my twist, Amina replied. Just twist your hair around your head like a crown.
How are we doing for time? We're good? Okay.
The next wash day, Amina's mom asked, "What style do you want today, my dear?" "I want my hair to look like the bubbles that Jeff was blowing. Jeff is our new class pet." I know just the style. Tell me more about Jeff." And so Amina's mom made her hair into bubble braids with baubles and shells all over. Monday at school, Rebecca stared at her and said, "Wow, I want my hair to look just like yours." Emily, Sarah, and Stephanie nodded and wanted the style too. "I love my hair," Amina replied, "but I don't think these styles have been working for you. You should try to find your own style." For the rest of the week, Amina's friends had braids of all kinds of things going on their head, but not a bubble braid in sight. There were no baubles, no shells, and Stephanie even had a real fish on her head. "Next week, I'm going to do a wash and go," Amina proclaimed. "There will be no braids, no bubbles, no twist beads or baubles, just my plain hair." The next wash day, Amina's mom asked, "What style do you want today, my dear?" "I want a style that my friends can't copy. I don't want any braids this week." I know just the style. And so Amina's mom did her hair once again. Monday at school, everyone showed up with nothing done to their hair. No tails, no hats, no braids, nothing. They all just came to school with it exactly as it grew from their heads. "It sure is nice to be myself instead of copying," Stephanie smiled. Everyone nodded and agreed. Amina was the last to arrive. Rebecca stared at her and said, "I love your hair." Everyone nodded and agreed again. "I love my Afro too."
And that's it. Yes. Remember.
And then a little message at the end of the book. Remember, you are beautiful exactly as you are. You are creative, and don't let anyone stop you from being yourself.
Absolutely. So this is, okay.
Is this where we can ask questions?
Thank you, Malaika. Yes, yes, we can. You know what? Yeah, I'll throw it open.
Who's your publisher?
There you go.
I am self-published.
Who are you?
Yes.
Who's your illustrator?
I do my own illustrations.
Wow. And do you have copies of the book to sell today?
Yes.
I do. My
That is great.
lovely
It just
mother
came.
And how much is it per copy?
It's $15. They're also available on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a young friend, friend of my son's, who specializes in really curly hair. And she's building a hairdressing business.
Okay.
I need to send her your book.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for the book. When you had the opening and I attended and I heard the story when she read the book, and I'm like, you know what? Even as an adult, you know, my early years here at work, you know, everybody wants to touch my hair, you know. And sometimes you're amused that, yeah, they want to touch it, but you don't even know why. Sometimes, yeah, our hair is, you know, natural like that. Sometimes it's short and kinky, and we put some chemicals to straighten it, to make it easier, you know, for us to maneuver every day. But many people don't understand that. And I think reading your book will definitely help, and also to appreciate, you know, that we also appreciate what we have, and we're just trying to make life easy for ourselves. So, and I think, like you said, many, you know, who are looking at the book should also read the book to be able to understand ourselves and our neighbors better, rather than, because sometimes it can be annoying to go to someone and say, I want to touch your hair. So that's why she writes books like this, for people to learn a little bit more about our hair. So I'll ask you a few questions. What are some examples of racism that you have experienced? So as a youth, I think we adults can talk about, you know, racism that we've experienced, but as a youth coming up, you know, I'm interested, and I think people want to know, what kind of racism experiences have you had?
Yeah, so I remember being a little girl at Portage Place with my grandma and my cousins, and people thought that this older Asian woman was our nanny. And whenever we go out to eat, even like to this day, we'll all get seated separately because people don't assume that Black, white, Asian, Indigenous people are coming to eat together, let alone part of the same family. And it's happened countless times where people would tell me and my sister that we're not really sisters or that our parents are not our real parents because we all look different. And when I was in grade 6, one of my friends saw my dad drop me off. And they were like, "What happened to your real dad?" And I was so confused. Yeah. And she's like, "I thought your dad was white. There's no way that this Black man is your dad." And I was like, "You do know that I'm Black, right?" Yeah. So growing up with a diverse kind of family, there's definitely a lot of things like that. And especially as the only Black child or, one of 2 Black kids in the class, there was a lot of instances of sort of bullying like that. When I was in grade 1, there was a girl in my class whose name was next to mine alphabetically, so we had our little cubbies together. We would do group projects together and activities, but the way that she treated me very drastically based on how my hair was done. If it was in like a natural style or I had a lot of accessories, then she was a bully. And when it was maybe braided with extensions and it was, longer, straighter, then she was nicer to me. So, just things like that.
No, well, thank you for sharing that. And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about your background in terms of ethnicities.
Yes, so both my parents are half Nigerian, so my mom is half Nigerian, half Filipino, and then my dad is half Nigerian, half Ghanaian. So I grew up with all different influences, and then growing up with my grandma being Filipino, and then my cousins who are Afro-Indigenous, there was always a fun time.
Absolutely. So one more question for you, or maybe I just want to share that even for me at work, as an adult, one day one of my coworkers, I came to work and I had I braided my hair, and sometimes I do curls, and so he said, "You know what, I like your hair curly." And the question is, how should I take that? When my hair was natural. So are you telling me that, I shouldn't wear my hair naturally? I just said thanks. All right. What's your advice to young children growing up in our society today who may be going through the same things?
My advice would be never to lose sight of who you are and don't try to be like everyone else, because we're all different, but we're all perfect exactly the way we are. You're not meant to be anyone but you. I would encourage them to stick together. It's important to have friends who understand your experiences, your culture, your values, and society tries to keep us as minorities apart and pit us against each other, but we all have similarities with food, cultural clothing, events and ceremonies, and amazing things happen when we come together and support each other, which is why I love events like this.
Well, thank you. This is very important for parents to ensure that they are good role models to their children, be as natural, teach them how to love themselves, and be as authentic as they are. And if we all do that, regardless of which race we are, who we are, I think we'll learn more about one another and begin to appreciate one another. And definitely, I believe that will reduce racism. So thank you very much. Thanks, Malaika, for reading from your book. Thank you for your experience. And thank you for having us.
Thank you.